Hello and welcome to The Entrepreneurial Musician, a newsletter, coaching service, podcast, and blog preparing today's musicians for tomorrow's realities. This is TEM295 titled Avoid This Big Mistake at All Costs When Selling Anything. Thank you to Parker Mouthpieces for providing the hosting for TEM. Parker Mouthpieces offers fine, customizable component mouthpieces for horn, trombone, euphonium, and tuba, including the Andrew Hitz Artist Model Tuba Mouthpiece. You can find out more at parkermouthpieces.com or follow them on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Please subscribe to the TEM YouTube channel. I'm ramping up the content over there. You can either find a link to it in the show notes or you can simply search for The Entrepreneurial Musician over on YouTube. All right, TEM295, avoid this big mistake at all costs when selling anything. My wife just bought a car. It was the first time that the family had bought a car in like 9 years. We drive cars absolutely into the ground. Her Toyota Matrix, which we bought in like 2005 maybe, ended up with 280,000 miles on it. It was an amazing car. But it finally died, and so we needed to buy a new one. We got a Subaru Forester, which she absolutely loves, and I do too. So we're happy with it. But the person who like gets you over the finish line. This is not the salesperson. This was not the gentleman who was the one who was actually showing her the cars and doing the test driving and all that. This was like one of the two other people, right? There's the finance person. But then before finance, there's also the person who tries to get you to buy all of the packages, like the insurance for computer problems. I mean, they come up. It used to be that they would try and get you to buy an undercoating to prevent rust. I remember when I bought our minivan, which I love. You can make fun of me. It's like other than a smartphone, it's my favorite purchase ever. It's like a rolling apartment, which is helpful when you're a tuba player. But I digress. And this guy was trying to like really make me feel guilty about not getting stain protection for the seats, which I have had a child, including a newborn, in that time. Yeah, I had the car for 9 years now, did not need the stain protection, and I turned it down. And they tried to get me to get rust protection, and like I just turned all that stuff down. So this person actually gave, it's rare that marketers, when they are selling something, are this obvious about making this big mistake, which it's easy to make on some level, and I thought it was instructive and can kind of remind us all. So what this person did when she kept on saying no to the different packages, and one of them, to their credit, sounded pretty good. She texted me. She handled all this by herself. She texted me just to get like a second opinion, and I said, no, we do not need that. Unless you want it. And then she was looking for my opinion though. I said absolutely not. She said no, and he then told her. He said, you don't understand. I only make money when someone buys these packages. I don't make any money off of the commission of the sale of the car. So what was my wife, the customer, supposed to do with that information? So the mistake that this guy just did a blatant example of, but we all can do this on, again, a minor level, is that he really blatantly made it about him. I feel for him that he is trying to probably support a family, even if he doesn't have a family, even if it's just him. He is trying to deal with the rising price of milk and escalating rent prices. So, interest rates, you can't get good mortgages anymore. Like, I get it. But he told my wife that the system that he voluntarily signed up for would only benefit him financially if she bought one of these packages, which she had already told him that she didn't want. And so the mistake he was making it about himself and not only having empathy for the customer and figuring out whether the customer needs whatever it is that you are selling. Does the customer need to be upsold to? Does the customer need this package of lessons or this level of wedding band or, etc.? And so, again, you don't get that kind of honesty very often because it's just like, it's obvious you're making it about you when you say, I'm only going to make money if you buy this. is like it's not even trying to. That's just trying to actually guilt somebody. That's pretty awful. If I had been there, it would have gone a different way than it did. My wife handled it great, and she just said no, and she was firm, and that's it. I just would have. I would have probably had a little bit of attitude, which would not have helped make the world a better place. So she handled it better than I would have. But anyway, you cannot make it about you. You only have to worry about whether the customer is going to benefit from whatever it is that you are trying to sell them, and they can always tell, and they can tell in their gut. Okay, a good marketer puts something in front of someone that when they buy it, they are happy afterwards that they bought it, and someone who is just doing sales at all costs tricks someone into buying something that they later regret. If I had purchased and made my car, payment go up 60 consecutive months to get rust protection, which you don't need anymore, and seat stain, like protection, which I didn't need, I would not have been happy. And I can't be guilted into that. Some people can, but here's the problem: is that you cannot take a short-term financial gain and throw away all trust, especially nowadays when people can leave ratings and reviews, absolutely everywhere. Kind of a side note that I just thought of is that they seem to have died down. It was like a couple of years ago, I was just getting request after request after request from podcasters who were in this space, usually, sometimes it was a little bit of a stretch, who were offering to trade with me an appearance on TEM for an appearance on their podcast. Which obviously, if I can get my name and my message, and most people, if they hear me talking about TEM coaching, are going to either be neutral or be like, no, there's no way I'm ever listening to that, let alone paying that guy for his expertise. But there would be some people, if I'm doing my job right, who are going to be like, I want to hear more. Like this person is my style, right? So it's good for me to be able to get my name out to an additional audience. And a really easy way is when someone else has built an audience that they are going to then like loan, me their audience and give them a chance to get to know me. That's good for me. However, if I say yes to that because it's good for me, who am I screwing over in that scenario? It's not the podcast host who has decided that this is worth it to them. This is screwing over you, the TEM audience, because when I get pitched for a guest appearance, the only people that I think about are you. Will my audience, and not that each one of you has the exact same needs and wants and desires in the music business, but overall, I've gotten a lot of emails. I've spoken to a lot of people. I have had events. I've gotten to know my audience over the last 8 years. And so the only question I ask is, will my audience benefit from this person being on the podcast? And at some point, if I say yes to, I'm not going to do it like 6 episodes in a row, but if half of the guests over a 6-month period, back when I had guests a lot, were all just podcasters who, what the interesting thing that they had done was started a podcast, which it's not easy to start a podcast and then keep showing up and then taking people's arrows and keep showing up. But that's very limited benefit to you. And so I would have been saying yes to that for me, because it also would have solved the problem of finding guests, and it would have just kind of been easy. And then somebody else is doing the marketing for me. It's like that would have solved a lot of problems for me. I said no to almost every single one of those requests because if they didn't have a podcast, I would not have signed them up for here, right? I'm not trying to paint myself as some kind of hero here. I'm just saying that you have to keep the end person in mind and not yourself in mind. And I will admit that when I'm left to my own devices, especially if I'm hungry or if I'm tired or whatever, I always worry about me number one, right? And that's a problem when we are selling things, because again, even if we make the sale short term, people are going to regret it if it's not actually something that they needed. And you might be able to convince them otherwise in the moment, but that will be bad for your business long term and for your reputation and for your brand, which the definition that term can get thrown around in a way that kind of is a little cringy. To me, brand is simply what people say about you when you're not in the room, or what people say about your string quartet or your composing when you're not in the room. That's your brand. And so always be thinking about the end user, which is not revolutionary, and yet I need that reminder from time to time. I just need it. And thank you to this person at this Subaru dealership who just gave such a blatant example of violating that rule that it made me remember just the nuance side, which I'm guessing I don't need to tell any of you to not be as blatant as that bozo at the car dealer. But we can all kind of go that route a little bit if we're not careful. And so make sure that we don't go there. Okay. This week's quote is from Richie Norton, and it is, "Sell the results, not the nuts and bolts." There is a famous quote from a Harvard psychologist. I don't actually remember what their name was, but I bet you've heard this, which is, if you've studied marketing at all, that no one needs a quarter-inch drill bit. What they actually need is a quarter-inch hole in their wall. And Seth Godin in This Is Marketing, which I'm actually rereading right now, he says that quote doesn't go nearly far enough, because no one actually needs a quarter-inch hole in their wall. What they need is that hole enables them to hang a diploma from a prestigious university, so that when they are on Zoom or seeing people, that it gives them some sort of status. They need that hole because it allows them to hang a photo of a departed mentor that reminds them of why they're doing what they're doing and motivates them and makes their work better, etc. We get something from what we use that hole for. And I have coached so many people through TEM coaching in the writing of copy, right? Like the words that we use on websites and to sell things in general. And I still, to this day, my first instinct is to try to describe what I'm going to do for you. For TEM coaching, my instinct is to say, I am going to take you through a process, like on one of these clarity calls. I'm going to take you through a process where you are going to go on the record with me, which is a way to go on the record with yourself about exactly what it is that you want to accomplish in the music business. We are then going to go through a process which is going to make sure that there is alignment between your actions and your stated priorities. Then I'm going to give you clarity before you hang up on this 90-minute call. You are going to know exactly what the next action that you need to take is, etc. Right? Now, that's all well and good, and maybe what I just described sounds good to you, and maybe I've piqued your interest. But why do any of us need clarity? Right? Do we need clarity because it's like something that like people say, like, do you have clarity? And if no, then we have to explain why. No, it's because the feeling of spinning our wheels is not good. It kind of feels like we're wasting time. Maybe I'm about to turn 48, it's like in 4 months, but it's like I'm like knocking on 50, right? Like I got a bunch of runway in front of me, knock on wood, but I do not have 40 years of professional life in front of me. And so if I lack clarity, and by the way, I have an accountability partner to help me with that clarity. But if I lack clarity, then I kind of feel listless, and that can actually start to seep into other aspects of my life. I wish it didn't. So clarity is going to give you, if your experience is anything like mine, clarity is going to give you contentment and direction and purpose, and like make you wake up and feel like you know what you are trying to contribute to the world. That's way more important than like ensuring that your actions are aligned with your priorities, which is like, that's how you get the clarity. I'm not trying to like in any way just dismiss the tactics. Like, why do we practice lip trills? Why do we practice double tonguing? Why do we practice double stops? Why do we take composition lessons and learn all the rules? Is so that we can then like use those to like write great music, right? Or to do great arrangements, or to say something musically, right? If I could say everything that I ever could possibly need to say musically without practicing lip trills, I would never practice a lip trill ever again for as long as I live, because it's like it bores the crap out of me. But I need to be able to do that to be able to tell the musical stories, which I have here in my head and here in my heart, in case you're listening, where I'm pointing. And so I do lip trills, right? But I'm so many, still to this day, I have had to reteach myself this like 25 times. Don't do the nuts and bolts. Don't tell me about the nuts and bolts. You need to lead with the results. How is someone going to be changed? How are you going to change my life? How are you going to give me purpose? How are you going to give me direction? How are you going to give me more time? How are you going to give me more money, etc.? And how is that going to change me? And then you tell me if I keep reading, that's fine. And because if you just say you're going to feel amazing, I'll just go, great. Here's $300 for a course. It's like that's not really how that works. But we can't lead with the nuts and bolts. All right. So sell the results, not the nuts and bolts. And to double back to my buddy at the car dealership, you need to be selling the results to people who actually realize that they have a problem and that you are the person that can best solve it for them. And don't trick them, even if it's like all above the board. Do not trick them into solving a problem that they're not really on board with the fact that they have, because it will long term end up biting you in the butt. Thank you to all of you for leaving a rating and a review on iTunes, or Apple Podcasts, rather, wherever you get podcasts. Thank you to everyone who has subscribed to the TEM YouTube channel. Thank you to everyone who has signed up for the newsletter at signup.tem.fm. And I thank you all just for your attention, which is the most valuable commodity any of us have to give. There's a lot of different places to hear people yapping into a mic, and it really is pretty awesome that you are listening to mine right now. And that is going to do it for another episode of The Entrepreneurial Musician.